Welcome to Secrets from a Billionaire's Matchmaker with matchmaker Gina Hendricks.
Hey there, Gina Hendricks here. For those of you who don't know, I've been a matchmaker since 2008. Been doing this a very long time. And I love to talk about love and dating still to this day. I will say I want to share some thoughts that I had with you this morning about boundaries. Okay. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings about boundaries is that people think boundaries are something you set after something goes wrong. Like after someone crosses a line, after you feel disrespected, after you're frustrated. That's when people say, I need to set a boundary. But what I've seen over the years in friendships and dating and relationships and work is that boundaries don't just protect you, they actually determine the outcome from the beginning. And I remember years and years ago, a friend of mine who happened, ironically enough, happened to be a guy who didn't have boundaries with anyone. He used to say, you teach people how to treat you. And you do. And that's why boundaries are so important. So today I want to talk about boundaries, not as a reaction, but as something that quietly shapes every outcome in your life before anything ever fully forms. I will say a woman did send me a question in advance, and it was about boundaries. And that's what queued up this whole idea of bringing this up and wanting to talk about this today. So here is the question that she sent me. She said, I want advice on the pacing of a relationship because I feel like something is off. It seems like maybe he's love bombing me. I'm not comfortable with it. So what are the effective ways to slow things down and show that I'm interested, but not that I'm willing to go at a speed that I'm not comfortable at? All right. And I know a lot of you ladies struggle with this as well. You've got to have clear communication, and that's where the boundaries begin. So if a guy is coming on too strong, right away, he is saying, oh, beautiful, when can we go out? And you've got great legs. It could be anything, right? But it makes you go, oh, I don't really know this guy, and he's pushing it. But you had interest until he crossed that boundary. So how do you reset it? I would say by this, okay? And this is how you're going to test him too. I call it putting his feet to the fire. You're going to ground him in reality by saying, hey, I like you and you seem great, but this is just too much too soon for me. So I like to get to know somebody at a slower pace. And then you stop talking, because I think a lot of times we overtalk. We think we have to over-explain. You don't have to over-explain. You just said it. What more do you need to say? You stop talking, and then you let him respond. Now, there will be those guys that'll then just give up and go away. Why? Because that's their pattern, to rush, and they don't know how to slow down, even when you've asked them to. And they don't care to slow down because this is what they do. This is what they're comfortable doing. And when they're rushing like that and they don't slow down even after you've given them the boundary, then that just tells you everything they're saying and doing has nothing to do with you. It's all about them. It's not, oh my God, he likes me so much, he's rushing. If he likes you so much and he's rushing, and you tell him you want to slow down and get to know him at a slower, more comfortable pace for you, then if he truly likes you, he will listen and he will pivot and he will slow down for you. Okay. But if it was never about you in the first place, it's just about how he repeats these patterns over and over, and maybe it's love bombing and maybe it's just his style, then he won't adjust because he can't, because it was never about you in the first place. All right. So this is how we start communicating our boundaries. If somebody does something that is, even for a friendship, I find that, and this is challenging because the healthier we become, potentially the harder it makes us for us to be in various relationships that we had before, because so many people are out in the world that are operating from an unhealthy place. And when you have healthy boundaries, and I've noticed it now, because listen, I was somebody who grew up with no boundaries, right? No boundaries. I was Wild West in my house. No boundaries. And I probably was not the best friend for a long time because I didn't have boundaries. I probably didn't respect boundaries. We're going back way before I had this business. But this business has, being an observer of people and what they do right and wrong, I've been able to, again, be a fly on the wall and see. And this is how I've learned and grown, just by seeing the mistakes people make, where I'm just like, oh my God. So out of that has come these really strong boundaries I have, that I've noticed that when I hang out with people and I have my boundaries, and they're not used to being with people who have boundaries, it makes things very uncomfortable. And so what happens is the better your boundaries are, the more you require other people to show up for you who are operating from a healthy place. All right, Allison.
I have a question. I got out of a relationship 3 years ago, and the last 3 years, I've only been on a handful of dates. I was healing. It wasn't there yet. And now I feel ready. And I'm just getting to a place where not anyone, but yeah, people who I'm meeting or encountering, or I'll get on the apps for a little bit, and it just feels very clear that it's a no. And part of me feels that everyone's a no. And part of me feels that it might be like my own one, I have clarity, so there's going to be a lot less people
Right.
available.
True.
And that feels very true. But I'm wondering if there's another component where I'm blocking my energy a bit. I don't even know if that's true, but I'm ready to meet the person. I'm ready to meet them. I'm also a hopeless romantic and believe in soulmates and that there can be multiple, but it does feel like person or people that are compatible with me are few and far between at this point now.
I think most people feel that way, to be honest. I think probably every lady here would probably agree with that and feel the same way. I think that so first of all, tell me what's your plan? Try to meet someone.
I would love to meet someone in the
I
wild,
knew you were
to
going to
be
say
honest.
serendipity. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, of course. I go on the apps and I'm also open to that too.
Yeah.
But I just relocated to Austin, Texas, and I'm also open to move anywhere in the world for the right person. I'm very free and flexible, and I just I don't feel that my person is on apps. I don't know, and I could be wrong, so I check on occasionally just to see how that feels in my body, and it just never feels fully right the last few years. So meeting someone out in the wild feels good, but I also just don't feel like they're in any city that I've lived. And so maybe that's my own story. And at the same time, it could also be true. And so then I go into this anxiety spiral of where are they? I'll go to the grocery store and be like, are they on aisle 6? Maybe they're here. Maybe that's them. And it's just
I
like this
mean,
low key
so what,
anxiety.
Allison, boy, when you showed up, you brought something great. This is great. Thank you so much. Okay, now this could be just be me, but your vibe feels a little low energy.
Okay.
And that could just be me and but I'm picturing you at the grocery store, and I don't picture you, or like Starbucks, I don't picture you looking around with a twinkle in your eye, smiling at random strangers or striking up a conversation. I could be wrong. I might be wrong. Am I wrong? But
There's also a like protected energy thing. You don't need to approach me, sort of thing. And
so
I'm also kind of,
this is the problem though, Allison, right? So the problem,
yeah.
if you want to meet somebody in the real world, the climate we're in, the men are hesitant to just randomly start talking to a woman or go up to her. So you're in a way, I'm glad that you're on the apps because it is a great resource. But if you want to meet people in real life, you got to open up and at least just try to, even if it's just a compliment here and there, to a woman, to anybody, to just get more people, just to get the vibes opening. Because even it's funny because I heard that it was great advice this girl gave me. She wasn't trying to give me advice, she was trying to give me her approach. And I was sitting waiting on my food order. This was a couple years ago, and she came in and she sat down beside me, and she was like, and I don't know, we started talking. Anyway, I'm pretty easy to talk to, as you can imagine. But anyway, and so we started talking, and she said her strategy when she goes out alone is to strike up a conversation with the bartender or whoever's nearby, because she said that's when men who are around will start to notice that she's the person people are engaging with. And I was like, huh, that is a damn good idea. I have a lot of good ideas, but that one I hadn't thought of. That was a really good idea. And I know that you might be an introvert and shy, but if you want to meet somebody in the real world, you're going to see the same thing happen over and over if you're not expanding and just trying to talk to people. Do you know what I mean?
But what about my soulmate's just going to recognize me across the room and walk towards me? And then will live happily ever after.
Okay, I know you're joking. I know you're joking because you're not that insane. But I would say that that's like the person who lives in a tent down at my corner who says, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket every week, and pretty soon I won't be living in the tent at the corner. I will be in a mansion and super rich. Do you know what I mean? That's just fantasy
Mhm.
thinking, and that's not going to get you anywhere. Whereas that person who is in the tent of the corner, if they used all that time and energy to make that elaborate compound that they built, if they use that in a better way, that would actually make more progress than them just sitting around wishing to hope to win the lottery. So I would just channel the energy and the intention into a mindset that says, yeah, of course my guy probably would be on the dating because you have to convince yourself, you have to, that's why they say you have to believe it to receive it. Because with manifesting, and I am a really good manifester, but the key, and I'm sure, but the key to manifesting is you can't just say it. You have to feel it vibrationally in every part of your body. You have to just feel it. I remember one day, we're going back in the time capsule. You guys always get stories I share. I remember one day, and granted, I was already kind of in that circle. I was a celebrity stylist, so I had access to those kind of guys anyway. But I remember one day so strongly, man. I was driving in my Bronco and I just had this feeling that washed over me. And it's more
Mhm.
about the feeling than even just the words you tell yourself in your mind. I had a feeling that, oh my God, I'm gonna find this. I liked rock stars and movie stars and all that. I like that. Wash over me, right? And I was like, I felt it in all my bones that I was just confident that guy would show up. Now, I'm not talking marriage babies, but I was just confident that guy that I wanted would show up, and it just whoosh, washed over me and I believed it. And then out of the blue, now granted, I was already a stylist, but it really came out of the blue, and it's one of my favorite stories. So randomly on a Sunday morning, because I had run into him at some music thing accidentally, like a whatever, I didn't think anything of it. I'd been a stylist on a couple of gigs. And all of a sudden on a Sunday morning, out of the blue, I get a phone call. And some of you won't know who this is, but it was Dwight Yoakam. And I love Dwight Yoakam. Dwight Yoakam was always my guy. I loved Dwight. And I was a stylist, and my friend got me on the gig because he knew I loved him. But anyway, he called me up and he's like, Gina, I was like, he goes, this is Dwight. I'm like, oh, who's joking? Yeah, I didn't believe. Anyway, it was him. He asked me out on a date. He picked me up. We went out, and I blew it for a number of reasons we won't get into today. But it's like I wasn't, in a way, I was surprised when he called, but not surprised because I just had that feeling wash over me. I don't know the time frame between that feeling and when he called, but it was all in that same time period. You know what I mean? But it is about just feeling it in your bones. And so I don't want you to feel it in your bones that the guy's just going to magically show up. I already had access to Dwight and I'd run into him in a bar. So that kind of lent itself to, it's nobody's going to magically just knock at your door. You have to be a co-creator in the story, Allison, and I hope that helps. Okay, so Ashley's question was when is the right time to playfully flirt with a guy I'm dating without pushing the boundaries too far since men are dogs? She pulled that from me. They're down and dirty dirt dogs. And how do we flirt appropriately? So this is the rest of her thing though. The issue I'm having is when I decide to give him a first kiss, usually third date, when there is chemistry, the kiss is fireworks and the men go nuts. Do I just not kiss them ever? So that's not the answer. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I don't think, listen, you can give a kiss that's an innocent kiss at a one, and you can give a kiss that's no holds bar kiss at a 10, which would be like a full on makeout kiss, right? So I wouldn't go there. I would be a little more moderate, if you will, when you kiss them. You don't have to go like the full blown. You just kiss them, especially now that you know that when you put it all out there, no pun intended or anything, that's going to really push them. I would just not go there until I would escalate your kissing style that's as proportionate to where the relationship is going. If you've dated longer, or that's what I do. If we need to identify what keeps coming up for us in dating, I think one of the big things that as a matchmaker, I recognize patterns, and the patterns are what leads us down these paths that sometimes don't serve us well, the patterns that we create for ourselves. Her pattern is that she is a sexy woman. She's a beautiful woman. And again, because she's sexy and because she's beautiful, men again become like 14-year-old boys. And so you have to recognize the patterns and then just say, what can I do differently? Because the old saying is that the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and expecting different results, right? So in order to start getting different results, you got to start doing things differently. So I think, Ashley, your takeaway is that if you think you're kissing, personally, you feel like it's at a 2 or 3, but they think it's at 100, your 2 or 3 is at 100, not even a 10, then you've got to just hold back a little more, girl. And I don't mean not kissing them, but just maybe just don't kiss them for as long. Don't get into it as much. Make these guys work for it a little more before you show them what they're really in for. But if you want somebody to respect your mind, and you're saying sapiosexual, which means you're attracted to someone's mind, then you need to lead with that. There is no kissing. They've got to wait and hold that boundary. That's your boundary, Ashley. Okay, Miriam, where are you?
Hi,
Hey,
Gina.
how
Hi,
are you?
Gina, and hi,
Great.
everyone.
Yeah,
Hi.
great to hear.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, regarding the kissing, because I had a comment about it. So I remember your story when you said your personal story with somebody that you find very nice, but not very attractive, maybe initially, but then you give him a second or third chance. And then when you ended up kissing him, you found that it was amazing.
Yeah.
If I remember well that story. So I follow your principle. So I went out with a couple of men one day that I found very charming, very nice. But the same thing, I didn't feel any attraction. And I have to say, so I gave him a chance the next day. He came from LA, so he spent 2 or 3 nights here in Lexington. And so I gave him a chance and I still didn't feel any attractions. And I kind of was just a little peck, but I was even repulsed a little bit. But then there was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad because
You
he was
can't come back.
so,
Once you feel repulsed, there's no coming back from that.
there is no coming back.
No.
And I felt so bad because he was so nice. He brought flowers the next day. He was so attentionate. But he just, there was no way. There's no way. But I said, I have to give him a chance. I said, he needs to do the kissing test.
Yeah, that's
Pass. It was
good.
just,
That's good. You did the right thing.
yeah, I just followed your advice for that. And
Sure.
because he was just a wonderful human being. And
Yeah.
he made a lot of effort. And then I had another one, same thing. I didn't feel we had too many, but he came also. But when we kissed, I'm like, gosh, he was just amazing. So then I'm like, Gina's advice works. So I always
Oh,
give a second chance.
great.
But then he had other issues, which I think he was just flirting too much with other ladies when we went out. So that was a no-no for me. That can't be like all the time. Yeah.
So what I didn't say in those other stories I've told before, where I became wildly attracted to both of those guys that I wasn't in. After I dated them, it doesn't mean they're the one or going to be the one, because in the
Sure.
one guy's case, he ended up being like just super insecure. He's the bad. He's also. I told a story on the live Zoom the other night about bad breath. And anyway, he didn't have bad breath always. He just had it one night, and I kind of told him and he just fell apart. He had a lot of insecurity issues. Anyway, and then the other guy ended up also being like a ladies' man kind of thing. So it doesn't mean that it's going to work out if you're not attracted to him and then you become, oh, this is the one. It just means you're evolved enough to give a guy a chance. And I think it's so great when you finally realize that yes, you can become attracted to men that you weren't initially attracted to. That's growth and that's progress. Whether it works out or not, that doesn't matter.
Sure. But yeah, I felt that it was nice to pursue. There was another. So right now I'm seeing someone that I met on the league. So
Okay, great.
my experience on the league, I felt that the profiles on the league, and I know, Gina, you mentioned that it's a slower process. And I think the men on the league, they all, except maybe for one, they just say hi. And I'm like, this is low level. But then I was like, well, I'll give them another chance. And I just respond to match their energy. They say hi, I say hi. And then see if they're going to step up. I decided to do that because I was like, let's see what they do. But I felt that every man was like, hi. But then they will step up. And so there is this man, and we had a phone call, and I felt he was flat on the phone call. He was very interesting otherwise, profile-wise and everything. Even the discussion, we had a nice discussion back and forth, but he was more reserved in his tone. And I was like, I'm not sure But then we spoke on the phone and I felt also, and I prepared a text to send him because he decided to drive here and to meet me and have lunch, actually not dinner, but lunch. And then I was like, maybe I prepared a text to send him that maybe we should cancel because I was like, I'd rather do my things and not waste a couple of hours with somebody who felt flat. But then I decided, no, let's just pursue. I had lunch with him and really it was amazing to see the difference between, I think he's just more a reserved person, between the messaging and the phone. He was just amazing, like in person, still reserved, but like a lot of questions. He was a gentleman, and I think I mentioned this to you, I really like more kind of an old-fashioned, attentionate man, and he was that way. So again, it's about maybe giving a second chance because I was like, wow, I'm glad I didn't cancel that lunch with him. So we'll meet again, and I'll update everyone.
I love that.
But
I love that. I think additionally, for those other women who are out there, I think additionally what you could have done too, because there's a lot of ladies that would probably not have rolled the dice like that. Another
yeah,
thing you could have done is a video chat to see. Did you do
yeah,
that?
no, we did a video chat. We skipped I'd say a call. We did a video call, a
Oh,
video
okay.
chat.
And
Yeah.
and so you felt like he was flat even on the video call, but you still
A
met him.
little bit, yeah. He's very good looking, he's charming, but I felt compared to others. But again, like the one I mentioned who was with the kissing was amazing, but who ended up like flirting with ladies and was just looking. I felt that he was love bombing, and I felt that this one was a bit more reserved. So there is a fine line.
It is a fine line. I agree. That's
Yeah,
the thing. It is
yeah.
a fine line. And I think that, do I believe in some ways, like if we could go and meet as many people as possible from the apps, that we'd probably have more luck. You'd probably find somebody if you were just able to meet as many people as possible. But nobody has that kind of time, nor should it
Yes.
do it. But I do think because we're confused about things, that we do end up ruling people out too quickly. That
Yeah.
might have been great, but I think we're all guilty of that too. So it is a fine line. It is a fine line. I'm glad you met him. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Krista, what you got on your mind?
My question was that I do certain activities like riding horses and a motorcycle and things like that, that the pictures seem to indicate more of a city lifestyle, and that's not my
Fair enough.
lifestyle.
Fair enough.
And so just curious, how do you broach that when you're trying to match with someone and they're more the city type, and I'm like, that's not my life.
Fair enough. So there's a few ways I can answer this question. On the one hand, I can say that what I know about men and all types of men, whether they are like punk rock or whether they're the outdoor fisherman, or whether they're sophisticated CEO type, at the end of the day, for your pictures, they're going to choose a woman who's the hottest woman they see. So, and that's the bottom line. So they will take their shot with a woman who, let's say the fisherman guy, the outdoor guy, the guy that loves to ride motorcycles. If he sees a woman and her photos don't look like that she rides bikes or fishes, but damn, she looks hot, you think he's not going to take his shot? Yes, he is. And it's more about how to appeal to the men just in general, because at the end of the day, like I said, it really comes down to how hot you look. And that's what's going to really motivate them. Now, saying that, I had a woman who was in like Idaho somewhere, and she was very down to earth. She wore one of the sexy date dresses, but she did it barefooted on the bed of her, let down the bed of her truck, right? So on that tailgate. And she sat there like with her glass of champagne or whatever she had in that cute little sexy dress, but with her truck parked in the middle of maybe a muddy field type of thing. I don't know if it's muddy. I might be making that part up. And so she had this huge truck. So that was a cute way to convey and still look sexy. Do you know what I mean? You know,
Okay.
I think some of you guys get this misguided advice and it's really misguided. I don't know where people get this. And maybe they get it because they talk to a handful of people, but I've talked to hundreds of men and sent thousands of profiles over the years. And so basically, the misguided advice is, oh, you've got to show a man that you play tennis or you do activities. Hell no, not in all these years, 18 years of me sending a profile to a man. If a woman looks good enough, does he ever say to me, Gina, I'd really like to see a picture of her playing tennis? No, if you just tell him you play tennis, or you tell them I love to ride motorcycles, then that's good enough. They don't need to, because sometimes I see people shoot themselves in the foot with these pictures where they really think it's so important to show them rock climbing or playing golf. Meanwhile, they don't look great. Their hair's blowing everywhere. The lighting's terrible on their face, or you can't even see them. They got a hat, sunglasses, and that could be literally anybody doing that activity. Skiing is a thing. So if you want to show yourself doing it, at least make sure you look super cute and you can actually see your face. If you're skiing, take off the hat and goggles just for the picture so you get a picture. You see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they're going to judge you on your weakest photo. And you can have all these photos where you look great, but then you've decided to throw in that one action shot, but that day your hair was blowing weird and you don't look very cute and your face is kind of jacked up, and then they're going to judge you on your weakest photo. So all the other good ones go out the door. Okay, so that's taking us out for today. You ladies are fabulous. So keep those standards high. Keep those emails coming. I love your feedback. I'll talk to you soon.
Want to keep up with more of Gina's advice? Follow her on TikTok and Instagram at Matchmaker Gina Hendricks, or visit her matchmaking website, ginahendricks.com.